Hello everyone, welcome to another edition of our BI and Data webinar sessions brought to you by Robert Walters. Today we're joined by Howard Wild, previous data engineer and manager, and he's going to be discussing data delivery capability and the skills needed to serve your business with insight. Now before I pass you over to Howard, just a bit about myself. Just have the next slide, Howard. Thanks. So those of you who don't know me already, my name's Chris Ingman. I'm Senior Recruitment Consultant over at Robert Walters, specialising within business intelligence, data and analytics. Also the founder of the Leeds Power BI User Group, and I also co-organise the Manchester Power BI User Group. Now, I appreciate it's the first session we've had since the new year, so happy new year everyone. And I just want to give you a bit of information about the market. If we just maybe go to the next slide, Howard. So the market's actually really good at the moment, the data market. I think obviously there's a lull last year during the first lockdown, and people trying to get used to working from home and companies getting used to the idea as well. But now we've kind of, we're at a point now where everyone's kind of settled and we're getting more and more roles released out. So it's actually a great time. It's almost back to the way it was before COVID. So I thought I'd make a list of the roles we typically recruit for here in the BI and Data team, ranging from heads off to engineers, developers and consultants. So obviously, if you're in a position where you're looking for a new role at the minute, feel free to get in touch. My details are at the bottom of the slide. And alternatively, if you're looking to grow your team out, again, feel free to get in touch. I'm more than happy to provide a bit of information regarding market trends, availability of candidates, average salaries. And that actually moves on to my next slide. It links to it quite well. So again, for those of you who don't know, Robert Walters, we produce an annual salary survey every year. Now, these provide the average salaries for various different roles, not just tech and BI, but also finance, HR, supply chain, you name it, it's probably on there. So it's a good way, if you're looking for a pay rise, it's a good way to benchmark yourself. Alternatively, if you're looking to grow your team out, you just want to know what the average salaries are within specific areas, then it's really handy. All you need to do is follow that link there. It's free to view, and yeah, open to anyone. And just next slide, but that's it from me really. So as always, I will be manning the chat box. So any questions you have throughout the presentation, feel free to write them there. Try and do it so I can read it well. Sometimes I struggle reading them out, to be fair. So if you can put it in a sentence, that'd be ideal. And also, if you can just do me a favour and keep your mic and video off, it just makes things run a bit smoother. But that's it from me. So over to Howard.
Very much. So today's session, data delivery capabilities. So everybody here should know, and probably does know, that a lot of our stuff is about getting raw data, turning it into some form of insight and presenting it to the business. And just before Christmas, I attended quite a number of kind of presentations around teams and team building and how to do things. And what it suddenly dawned on me was that everybody was talking about starting a team from scratch. You need these people. You need an ETL developer. You need a data scientist. You need this. You need that. And I would imagine that a number of people here who may have been in the business for quite a while understand that that's not always the case. A lot of times one person will cover multiple roles. I remember when I started off as a developer. I was also a DBA. I was also the data analyst. I was the data manager. All kind of roles and things that I would have to do that people are saying are actual roles nowadays. So what I thought was, let's break this down into capabilities. To get data from A to insight to B to the customer, you need capabilities, not necessarily roles. And you can build roles around those capabilities as you go. And in this presentation, I'm going to highlight what those capabilities are. They're not roles, they're not titles. Those can be applied after you've done all the other stuff afterwards that I'll explain. And I'm going to split those into capabilities, into typical process functions. I'll explain that in a few moments. And eventually what I'll do is I'll go down and I'll explain what they all are, take it to the next level so that you can start to build or understand how your team should be built, and then ways and tools and techniques that you can use to start building that team. first bit of the slide, we have data on one side, we have the customer on the other. Our journey has always been to get A to B. The typical route that we do is we process this, we apply some analytics, and then we present it to the customer with visualization. However, that's always screwed up a little bit because data is added in throughout the process. So you may have people saying, oh, I want to add this spreadsheet into the data lake or the data warehouse. You know, how do I do that? Oh, and the data scientists will say, oh, actually, do you know, I want to see the raw data in your data lake or in your data warehouse. Then we go through and we apply the analytics. This is typically where we do all the year-to-date comparisons, that kind of stuff, and the visualizations, making the dashboards and the pretty reports. More often than not, at this point, we've got spreadsheets coming in from other places or data from open source places. You know, let's see, the marketplace where you can buy this kind of data and so on. Now, the typical business model that everybody knows is we build a data lake or a data warehouse, somewhere to store all of that data. We'll typically kind of adjust it in some way. We'll either conform it so that it can be consumed. One of the classics is converting the date time into a standard date time so that the business intelligence teams and the data scientists don't have to faff about and meddle with the data even more. And then it's usually, I wouldn't say thrown over the fence, but it's usually palmed off to the business intelligence team and the data scientists who then go and do their stuff and then present it to the user. Or as time's gone on, you know, we've got this lake house concept, and this is kind of one of those things where, because there's a lot of shared capabilities within all of these roles, turning it into one kind of process makes some sense. And I'll talk about this in a few moments. But so that's kind of like the overarching way of doing things. So in terms of the actual capabilities, we're going to start off with the foremost obvious. So we need data engineering. Can't do this without it. We need test engineering. And again, depending on where you are in the life cycle, you may not necessarily have individual testers. You may have different parts of your data engineering, peer programming, not peer programming, peer reviewing and testing each other's code. Database engineering and platform engineering, again, it's one of those things where you may be on AWS and using nothing but Parquet files, at which point you don't have a database. You don't need data engineering. Platform engineering, you do need a platform to go on this, but if it's one of those things where you have a separate team that deals with the platform, then again, that's not necessarily always your responsibility. However, your developers, your data engineers, and maybe your test engineers may need to do some form of platform engineering as they're building out their own environments. They want to do some form of CI/CD on the back of that for their own development processes. Next phase, we have the database management. If we have a database, we're going to need to manage it. The administration, setting up the partitions, all that kind of stuff. The same with the platform. And of course, we're going to need some system management, whether it's Linux or Windows, whichever operating system that you're on, somebody's going to need to manage that. Then data modeling. Yes, at some point, somebody's going to need to, if you've got a database, somebody's going to have to create what that model is going to look like. How are you going to present the data? And of course, everybody's famous, lovely subject of data quality. You got data hygiene management. Data is never as clean as you're going to want it. So at some point, somebody somewhere is going to be cleaning it based on some form of analysis. After that, we got process flow management. You know, getting data from A to B, you've got to work out how it's going to get there and at what point. You're scheduling, you know, oh, this can only be done at 2 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock. We need to work out how we're going to do that. And again, you're not going to need a full person for that kind of stuff, but it does need to be managed. You've got your metadata management. Should you need to do any kind of governance or lineage, maybe you drive your orchestration with some kind of scheme. And then your configuration management. You need to configure things like your automation, your deployment, all that kind of stuff. Then you need release management. How are you going to get it out into production? Because without being in production, you're not going anywhere. And of course, service management. And again, this may not be your bag, but if it is, then you're going to have to think to yourself, I'm going to have to plug this gap. So those are all the things that are done or typically done within the process side of things. In the analytics side, you may need software engineers. It could be that you have some custom or inbuilt, in-company built front ends. You're also going to probably need to do some APIs. You may also have your dashboards custom built within the company, at which point you're going to need some form of software engineering. And then analytical engineering, of course, going back to the business intelligence people will typically put some kind of last year-to-date percentage increase or change. And if you are going for a data ops kind of thing, you're going to want to put some kind of statistical process control stuff in there. And then obviously for the data scientists, we got the ML engineering, AI engineering, and data science engineering. So the ML, you may be doing some kind of face recognition software. The AI engineering, you may be doing the chatbot, whereas the data science engineering, you may need to work out some algorithm for fraud detection. So again, three quite different aspects to data science, and each one of them could be an individual. However, as we've seen, ML ops is only beginning to start to grab a bit of attention. We've been talking about ML ops for a good number of years, but the teams are now maturing to be able to do that kind of stuff. But in the main, a data scientist will typically cover all three of those bases. And then the visualization side. So we've got the data viz engineer and we've got the data viz administration. Those people that are going to be building and administering the front end kind of visualize, sorting out the admin. Well, when I say the administration, how often things refresh and who can see them, whether there is some form of security in there is handled by this person. Now, what you may see is on all of these boxes, at either side, there may be some form of color coding. So on the data engineering side, I've color coded the fact that business intelligence and data scientists also typically have some form of capability of data engineering. I certainly know that a lot of business intelligence have test engineering. I don't know as many data scientists that do a lot of testing, or should I say, they tend to test their own stuff. Platform engineering, again, it's covered by all bases. And this is where, when you look at a data lake, you think to yourself, well, actually, I'm covering a lot. Everything on that process side in orange is typically covered by all aspects, by the analytics and the visualization side. And the lakehouse looks to kind of say, well, there's lots of duplication there. The data modeling is going to be different for a data lake as it is with business intelligence. And if you've got a feature store for your data scientists, it's going to be different there. But is there the possibility of having one person that may be filling all of those roles, rather than having somebody that is responsible for doing the data modeling in the data lake, then in the data warehouse that the business intelligence guys are going to use, and then in the data scientists for their feature store. Right? I'd much prefer to have a data scientist doing data science than creating their own feature store, whereas I'd be a lot more happier to have a hardcore data engineer build that feature store for them. So those are the key ones of your typical development team. Now, oh, missed one. The training management. Of course, once you've done all of this, your users are going to need some kind of skilling up to be able to use the data viz stuff. If they do have access to the back end, the tools for being able to access the raw data or the amended data in the business intelligence side. But on top of that, we have the extended team. You know, all of those people together can do wonders, but without an extended team, you know, the management side of things, who's going to be the PM? Who's going to be the line manager or the lead engineer? Who's going to create the test management side of things, that kind of stuff. Then we've got the assurance. You know, somebody's going to need to make sure that people don't check their own homework, ensure that the best practices and frameworks are held to, that we've got some decent quality data going out. We've got the analysis side of things. So we've got a business analysis, systems analysis, data analysis. So much analysis needs to be done, and of course it can be done very differently in different sections. You know, you may have a BRD, you may do things a bit more agile. The analysis of the data for the business intelligence and data science is going to be a lot harder, maybe not harder, but a lot different than what it would be for just populating a data lake. And then again, we've got architecture. You know, enterprise architect, solution architect, we've got data architect, platform, service. All those things, you know, depending on the maturity of your company, will certainly need somebody to kind of fill a gap there. Now, the reason I've kind of done this across the board is that these are typically the things that an individual can do across all of those. They're kind of overarching. And then the final layer for our capabilities is the enterprise level. Yeah, there will need to be governance on your data. There will be security. You will need business engagement. You know, some form of product owner or those people that are asking for the data in the first place, that end user needs to be fully engaged throughout the process. And then again, you've got your strategy. So this could be your CDO, it could be your CEO, whoever's kind of in charge of the overall data strategy. They're going to need to be involved because ultimately it's their neck that's on the line if this doesn't go right. So I'll try to keep this short. Now, as we've seen there's a lot of capability. Now, as I mentioned earlier, your team may or may not be that big. You may not have or need a lot of or some of these particular capabilities. As I mentioned, if you don't have a database, you're not going to need database engineering. You're not going to need database management. But this is kind of like a solid foundation. If you think to yourself, these are all the things that can be or should be present for a highly mature delivery, then you can go through and you can pick and choose which one of these you actually need, which then you can start to think, right, I need to shape my team or teams to be able to fulfill these capabilities. At which point, what I'm going to do here is go through the kind of tools that you can use to help structure your teams around these capabilities. So, first of all, evaluate your position. What is your team size? What team members do you have? What resources do you have? Are you able to get more resources? Do you have extended teams, such as the platform is not necessarily under your management, but they do have a capability and they will be looking after your stuff for you. Same with the enterprise or solutions architect. How much time are you going to get from them? You look at your data maturity. You know, how big are we? You know, can I go out? Can I get more resources? How big a thing is governance? GDPR, all these other kind of things that you need to take account of. How are you going to fill those boots, basically? Then you've got the barriers. All right, we don't have enough people, and there's not enough budget, or the teams that I want to be, or the capabilities such as platform engineering, I want that in my team, may not be possible for you. And then you look at what the business and the tech priorities are. You may have shed loads of technical debt that you want to cover off, but in actual fact, the business has turned around and says, do you know what? We need this particular thing or this data science model delivered within the next 4 weeks. At which point you think to yourself, right, I'm going to have to start thinking about these results, and I'm going to have to put those at the head of my focus. So what I tend to do is build a tech radar. So I've got a set of actual skills, tools, and platforms and techniques, frameworks, languages at my disposal. So I have my data engineering. Right? For a lot of people, that may be Scala, maybe AWS, maybe Google Azure. Sorry, not Google, Microsoft Azure. It could be Google. But at the end of the day, how do I do my data engineering? How do I get data from A to B? It may be a set of languages. It may be SSIS. But it's in this tech radar that you call out all of those particular texts that are going to be used. So tools, I may use Octopus. I may want to evaluate Octopus because our current method of deployment isn't as good as it should be. Do we use Docker? We use TFS as our source control. We may use Git, maybe a combination of both. But all of that tech goes onto this radar because at some point you're going to have to ensure that you've got the skills to cover it. Languages, SQL, Scala, Python. Your platforms, is it Azure? Do we do Elasticsearch? Are we using Node.js? All that kind of stuff. And your techniques, well, we're doing CI/CD in actual fact. We're always going to go cloud native on anything that we do unless otherwise told. All these kind of things, once you've got it on there, you've got a full landscape of all the things that you need people to be skilled in, which is great because you know exactly what you need to do to deliver. You've got your capability, you've now narrowed it down to the actual tools and techniques for delivery. The next step then is to look at your existing team, or your existing team and extended team. How well can you deliver on this? And what I tend to do is down one side, as you can see here, I'll have the capability, I'll say where it lands on the tech radar, and I'll actually have the skill that is actually required and the level at which we believe it's needed. And it's not up to one person to create this, it's up to the team. You may allow, or you may ask the enterprise architect or the solution architect to own this and to keep it updated. It may be your tech lead, but ultimately the entire team need to be involved to create that kind of thing. So in the box next to the side, we've identified that in this particular program, we need SSIS and we need somebody very skilled, level of 1 to 5. And again, there are multiple ways to do this, but this is the tool that I tend to use. So if I need a skill level of 4, and I've got, you can see here, I've got a couple of people with level 4 on there, I know I'm covered. However, I'm also doing some Spark, and I want it to level 3. I've got, actually, I've made a mistake. I should have said I actually need it to level 4. What I've identified is that I've got 2 people that are pretty good at it, but what I should be looking to do is upskill the 2 of them. And without having this matrix competency framework, I may not have noticed that. I'm doing some platform stuff, and do you know what? I've got 1 person with a skill level of 5, which is where I need it, but I've only got 1 person. I've got a single point of failure there. My team model of having a team who can look after each other isn't there, at which point I've flagged it as red because I need to do something about it. And the same with Jira. Things like Jira, or ideally the entire team should be around the same level of the skill required because every team member needs to have the same skills. So here I've identified that most of the team cover that, but one person doesn't. So I'm going to look at upskilling Jen. And it's the same with everything. Anything on that tech radar on the side, you need to go through and evaluate where people are. It's up to you how you can create this, because these tech radars can be managed in different ways. You might not have your languages in frameworks. You may put it with something else. You may have your little red and green dots for your competency framework. You may have gone through identifying people's skill levels by asking them openly where they believe there are. You may go to your senior developer or your principal and say, based on your experience, where are these people on that journey? But essentially, once you've done all of this, then it should be pretty straightforward. You've got yourself a set of skills that you need to do. You've identified the people within your team. You've identified gaps and actions on how to plug them. You know, it may be that you want to go with your hand out and ask for more people, because in actual fact, I've got Dave covering 13 different roles. You know, he's doing some data engineering. He's doing the platform. He's doing test as well. You know, you may realise that some of your team are overswamped. But one of the good things about this is that when you've done all of this, you know, like I say, you know your gaps, but you've also been able to identify all the roles and responsibilities of your team, which can make it quite educational to yourself, and it will also give the team clarity as to what they are expected to do and at what level. Also allows you to create relatively decent job specs. If you do need to go to market, you know exactly what that person needs to do. You've got a role already mapped out as to what their day-to-day activity will be, which is great. And finally, it can help with the appraisals. If somebody has a very clear idea as to what their role is within the team, it should be pretty easy for you to be able to create a set of objectives for that person to be able to grow. So one of the examples in here would be, I need to upskill Jen and Dave for Spark. Right, let's make it an objective for them to get to level 4. So I think that's about it from me. So, sorry, yeah, so thank you very much. That's the end of my presentation. I'll hand over to Chris.
Great, cheers Howard, thanks for that. I thought that was really good. Now, yeah, we'll just open it up to the everyone. If anyone's got any questions they'd like to put forward to Howard, feel free to just put in the chat box now. I have not had any yet, but you know, feel free. We'll give it a few minutes. Joys in working from home, eh, Howard?
Yeah, it's fabulous. Yeah, I have this. We don't really have enough space in the house, for the apartment,
yeah,
for a full-time office. So I pack up this desk and chair every single day.
yeah.
Put it out in the morning.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I've got a similar issue myself. I mean, I'm using my phone at the moment because my internet's so bad. Me and my girlfriend are both working the same at the same time. So she's using the phone over the internet. So I've got to use my phone to do this. It's a nightmare. Here we go. We've got a question. So Phil Parry. So he asks, what tool would you recommend for building your tech radar other than Excel?
Now there are a couple of free ones out there that are quite good because it allows you to have the tabs. Your tech radar has things like the tools and techniques that you're going to hold, the ones that you're going to adopt, the ones that you're going to look at, and so on. So there are some out there that allow you different tabs so you can manage it a lot better. If you can't find one of these tools, what I could do is I can have a look later at some of that I used to use, but quite often they may come. I think Confluence has them built, has the capability built in, but I can't remember whether you have to pay for that feature. If not, yeah, Excel would be fine.
Yeah, literally just give it another 30 seconds, and if there's no more, then we'll wrap it up. It's always a way, as soon as I go to wrap things up, we get a lot of questions through, so we'll just give it 30 seconds or so. No more questions, guys?
Yeah, hopefully I covered everything well enough then.
Yeah, I think you did, to be fair. Right, well, we'll just wrap up. Obviously, if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them forward to Howard direct or to me. Obviously, I can pass them on. The session will be recorded as well, just if anyone wants to revisit it, obviously. Just to reiterate then, so obviously, just want to say a big thanks to Howard for taking part today. I found it really interesting, getting a lot of messages now saying thanks, Howard. So I'm guessing a lot of people did as well. So we are looking for more speakers really moving forward. We've got a few sessions booked out, but as always, we'll always need speakers to do similar presentations. So if anyone's interested or knows anyone who might be, feel free to get in touch. As always, my name's Chris Ingman. So if you have any details, if you have any, if you ever looking to, look at any information regarding recruitment or the market, etc., feel free to get in touch. And that's it. So thanks for everyone for joining. Thanks again for Howard, and hopefully see you soon.
Bye.